everybody. Welcome back to Three Guys and a Ball. And today's ball is Garth Massey. What's going on, Garth?
How we doing, guys? Thanks for having me here.
Video
podcast.
What you're up to?
Welcome.
So, Garth, before we go into our today's topic, why don't you tell our audience a little about yourself, introduce yourself, and what you do and what your company does?
Sure. So I'm with a company called Command Ready. I'm a colonel in the United States Marine Corps Reserve. I run a little thing called Coffee with the Colonel. We put out just little thoughts every couple of days about life, leadership, improvement, and that's what Command Ready does. We teach leadership. We go to civilian corporations. We bring some of the best lessons that the military's learned about how to make decisions, plan things, get ideas into action, and we help companies and organizations make that happen as they build their cultures up. So that's me, infantry guy, and I've seen a couple of your shows, Jake. I know sometimes you're the lone Marine here, so I'm here to help absorb all the crayon jokes and do what I can to help you balance the tables a little bit, So.
Yes. Semper Fi.
That's right. There we go. He's humping. If he's here, he's got me on the phone.
I don't see any rock straps though.
Yeah, no, he's got to be training. He's got to be working. That's like the
Long day, guys. We got 4 dogs to walk.
Still should have had a sappy plate carrier on. So what are you guys talking about today?
About leadership in regards to security, but both for the military and for the civilian side. And what you see, what the industry standards are, and what what we see all the way from the bottom to the top, what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah, I think we use the word wrong. I mean, we don't teach leadership growing up in the civilian world. We don't teach leadership in our schools. We have leadership classes. We use the word a lot, but think about it. Like everything you did was individual based when you were growing up. You studied, you got good grades. If you got good grades, teachers gave you more time. You did better on tests. You got into a better college. You got a better resume. You got a better job. And when you got to the job, you got put on a project and you were there to excel on the project. And if you did, then because it's funny and it's in a movie, they put 3 people working directly underneath you. And you're suddenly called to be a leader, but all you've ever done is be an individual performer. And so the skill set it takes to transition from someone who's working on being a great doer of things into someone who's developing efficiencies for other people, whether it's time or knowledge or just the environment, the space that we operate in, that's leadership. And we don't teach it. We teach, look at our heroes. I mean, all of our heroes are etched out of stone, or they're in steel somewhere and they're in a park and they have a sword drawn and it's pointing at the North Star and they got their foot up on a barrel like Captain Morgan. We idolize that sort of follow me thing, and it's going to bite us because we're getting smarter, or at least we think we are, and we're developing critical thinking, right? And so now we have this 20 years of teaching critical thinking to junior Marines and soldiers and sailors and airmen, and 20 years of teaching critical thinking in our schools or calling it critical thinking. And all our senior leadership was never taught how to lead a force that might come to a different conclusion than you do. And so what happens when the conscript mindset senior leaders yell, "Follow me, we're going to go to hell," and they look behind them expecting to see the Marines surging up over the wall saying, "With 2 cans of gasoline, sir," and off they go. And instead the Marines are going, I got to a different conclusion than you did because I thought about it differently than you did. And I have different end states and goals than you do. Well, how do you lead that? And I think we're seeing that everywhere right now. We're certainly seeing it in businesses across America. The military seeing it, the Marines are seeing it in Force Design Commandant just put a whole article in the Marine Times about senior leaders needing to step back a little. And if you're going to teach critical thinking, then we have to learn how to lead with a little bit of space. And I think as it comes to active shooting, same thing. Like, we all watch the same movies, or we looked at Columbine and we think we understand what the right thing is. But when I look at your guys' space, I mean, it seems like the SOPs of what to do when something goes wrong, I mean, they change every 3 months, because truly understanding the situation and what your response to be should be, it's an art form, and it requires constant study and refinement and errors. And that's leadership too. It's a constant study of self-improvement and putting yourself through the process and grinding away at the good things that improve you so that you can bring your best game to the people around you. And, you know, so for me, leadership is more about the process, and it's more about a study of virtue or character. And it's less a study of, like, you know, if you point with this finger while you're writing in this paragraph, suddenly you're going to be this amazing leader. You know? Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yes. Well, we're not supposed to knife hand anymore, but you know why they do the knife hand though? I don't know if you guys knew this.
Yeah, because nothing's pointing back at you.
Well, yeah, they say, right, when you point with one finger, you got 3 fingers pointing back at you, but when you knife hand, that stuff's all on you.
Jake, are you actually raising your hand, or did you just like hit random buttons on your phone while you're walking your baby?
No, I raised my hand, but I also did it as a hasty knife hand as well.
It's a hasty knife hand to God. It's a vertical knife hand.
With 5 fingers pointing upwards.
That's right. That's right.
Hey, so Garth, I want to ask this question. Can you explain the difference between management and leadership? Because I think you talked a lot about management in what you expressed here for a few seconds.
Yeah.
But your perspective on those two different things.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge difference. And there's memes about it, right? Like, it's the meme of the guy, like a manager's in the back with the whip telling the people to pull the sled. You know, the leader's up front with the rope on the shoulder, pulling it with them. Maybe. I think more simply, a leader is focused on providing purpose and direction. And they do that through environment shaping, which is education, resources, you know, just focus, right? Getting people focused on things. A manager is there to optimize a process. They bring efficiencies to a system. Filling out your time cards, making sure you take vacation days, ensuring that your paperwork is done. That's management. And you have to have management. That's like the first step towards leadership. You don't get leadership till further down the train. I mean, no company wants 100 leaders. They want 1 leader, you know, or 3 leaders. And then they want a couple managers to optimize. And then they need a whole bunch of people just doing stuff. Well, but we mix the terms a lot, and we ought not to. The managers are there to make things efficient and work well, right? And make people feel good about being there. But meanwhile, the leaders, you know, if there's 6 styles of leadership, and the 2 most common are commanding and pace setting. They're also the 2 most negative. A true leader, drop them. You don't need them. You don't have to do it. Go to the other 4 styles. You don't need to tell people what to do, or to be the first one in every morning and the last one to leave to lead. That's a manager, right? If you want to evolve, you got to go. Tim, I still.
Yeah, no, I really, I like what I'm hearing. I was skeptical since, like, you were a Marine, are a Marine, and like command presence type company, because okay, I'm in the Fortune 500 sphere right now. Before this, I was contracted at the State Department. Before that, DOD. Before, right, and it goes and goes and goes. And when I came to the tech sector, I was completely caught off guard at the transition that I would need to make. And I see this over and over, not even with the tech sector, because that gets really extreme with how companies like to run in that sector, but people transitioning from government service, from the police, from the military, and they have this very command presence, you know, chain of command form of leadership and management in their mind, and they wonder why they smash their face against the corporate brick wall over and over and over again. And I've come to the conclusion that in the military or in the government, we are cogs within a larger machine, and they all need to keep working. You don't actually get to become a master at your job because there's 100 other people supporting you.
Sure.
When you get to a corporation to where efficiency is important, to where revenue is important, and you can get HR complaints against you, leadership looks and feels a lot different. And so many people fail to make that transition to that leadership curve. What do you see with that?
So the good news is you get HR complaints about you now in the military too. And I don't know if it's good news. But I think you're right? Like, we allow ourselves the illusion of importance because we have things like command, right? I mean, you're the squad leader, you're the platoon commander, you're the company commander. You think you're really important. I'm an infantry guy. I had command of an infantry battalion. It's 700 to 1,000 people depending on the weather. And I arrived thinking I had hit the pinnacle of the infantry, and I was very proud of myself. To the range, and I started talking to these lance corporals, and it occurred to me they had no idea who I was. And I mean, they knew their chain of command, and like you could easily go, well, you weren't leading well enough. Like, okay, sure, but at the same time, if I covered up my name tape and said, who am I? And the guys would be like, we have no idea. And then one kid said, well, I mean, you're an officer. I just salute you. And I was like, well, do you know what this rank is? And I was lieutenant colonel at the time. And his answer was, no, I memorized up through captain. I know it's shiny. That's all I care about. And I mean, his sergeant was behind him going apoplectic. But the truth is, he was right. Like, he had no business talking to a lieutenant colonel. Like, anything he says is just going to get him in trouble. Like, as soon as I leave, no matter what he said, he's going to get in trouble. Well, you take that and then you put that in the civilian world. Or, you're selling yourself short. I mean, in the civilian world, you still have to go through the ranks. I truly believe there is a hierarchy in the civilian market too. But how you engage and who you engage with is a lot more nuanced. And there's nothing shiny on people's collars is kind of the old mantra. I mean, they say that the most difficult group to transition, and my, brothers in the Senate out there, I'm sorry, but they're colonels. They're terrible to transition because we finally gotten to this place. I'm at 26 years where you start thinking a certain way and then you have to make the transition back. It's hard. And a lot of guys go out and they're like, wait, don't you understand? Like, when I come in the room, everyone stops to see what I need. That doesn't exist in the civilian world. You have to earn that, and people have to recognize it. And it's a different kind of leadership. Yeah. I don't know if that answers your question, but.
So, hey, Garth, I got a question about, now I want to think about, this is perfect for businesses and civilian companies, is you kind of said it already, but how do you feel about what are they missing most compared to the military mission? Is it the mission of the why, or is it the fact that it's just for profit, most of them,
No, I mean, people get hung up on the for-profit, and there are certainly cases of abuse. I know some of them very personally, where people get carried away with what they're trying to make. But I would tell you that most of the time when I get brought into an organization, you can call it the why. In the military, it's called the commander's intent. If you don't have the commander's intent, so this is the scenario, right? People come to me and say, I just wish people would communicate better, or I just wish they showed more initiative, or, they did a little more innovation, because I have all these new managers and they're not stepping up. And I go, great. So what are the four corners of the contract? Like, what are they supposed to play in? What's the intent? If I said my desire is ... and then included the words in order to, what would that be? And unfortunately, most people can't articulate it. And so, the question is always like, how can you operate with initiative or innovation in an environment where you have no idea what's okay? What are your boundaries? Like, you're not supposed to talk about the budget because somebody else does that. And you're not supposed to like go over here, but I mean, and I could strip down and go run through this park right now, and that would be initiative. It would be poor judgment, and it's not going to get me what I want. But I think number one, the one thing the military does really well is mission. Like, even when we have, it's dorked up, like we know what it is, and whether we agree with it or not, we know what it is, and we're all moving in that direction together. In the civilian world, we're not as good at communicating. And so the commander's intent or the mission or the why gets lost. And as soon as the why is lost, now you have these critical thinkers. We're back to that again, right? And so they're just grabbing on like just, bits of and data and information. And they're like, this is the truth of the world. And then they start operating in that direction because the leadership, those two, the commanding and pace setting, the two most negative and most overused styles of leadership, that's what people default to. The four that we're not talking about, one of them is vision, one of them is coaching. And if you just focused on those, like, what is it you're trying to do? And then coach people to get their skill sets to align with the organization's needs, be huge. But first, you got to know what you want. So,
another interesting thing is when you're in the military, when you're in the government, promotion is pretty clear cut. right? Like you have to make points, you have to do so-and-so things to get your steps if you're a GS. But in the private sector, you have to have a scope of work that allows for promotion. You have to have enough space to move up. It doesn't matter how good you are at your job. And so some people have trouble wrapping their head around what success looks like, what success feels like, but also the importance of their role.
Well, and then the dirty, like, fifth wheel on that one is you got to have a benefactor. Like, if you really want to promote up, there needs to be somebody above you that says, hey, bring him in here. Like, he's in this club now, or she's in this club now, right? You need a mentor or a coach that's willing to say, that's the one. Because time will promote you in the government sector and the military. But if you don't have someone in the company who's taken an interest in your actions and is looking down and saying, hey, look, she finishes these things on time. She's got the right attitude. She's working really hard. Let's bring her into the next level. And it's not a club. I'm not talking about like some secret room with capes and masks or something. Like, this is literally just to get to the next level. They have to recognize that they want you to be part of that level, right? And they have to pull you up. And that happens, you know, at the star level in the military. So 99% of all military guys and girls will never see it, never experience it. What they know is that time promotes you. But in the civilian world, it's not that. It's not only being good, it's someone else being willing to invest the time to take you up onto the next promotion.
Well, you also got a lot of bureaucracy too in the civilian world.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's none of these things are the silver bullet. That's the only other thing I run into a lot is somewhere we got it into our mindset that there's this silver bullet, you know, like, oh, if I could just figure out how to trick this one thing, you know, it's easy street all the way up. And, you know, some of it is all the memes out there about entrepreneurialism and success. And, you know, it's the movies about these famous Steve Jobs, you know, who they come up with this idea and they change an industry and we study them. You know, and then we just gloss over the parts where they were absolutely horrible human beings, you know.
Or they failed hundreds of times.
Or they failed thousands of times. Yeah, I mean, we're all fatally flawed. You know, when you go back to the lesson on character, we all have fails. Our job is to work on developing courage, justice, temperance, and prudence. Stick to that. Like, if you can improve on those things, understand them, and build towards them, you'll get something, and the something is humility. And then on top of that, the crazy one, magnanimity, which is this big old word that just means big, crazy, hairy goals that are worth shooting for. Like make something in your life worth shooting for.
Yeah.
But you can't get that. And when you look at your active shooter stuff, to take it back to what you guys talk about all the time, like these shooters, I mean, they're fatally flawed on just the character. They don't get to humility. You know, they never make it past temperance. You know, they're not even keeled. Everything is in an extreme. You know, oh, I looked at the news this morning and the world has ended because I saw in Taiwan the dollar has gone down, you know, whatever. Temperance, like figure out how to take everything in its measure. And that will get you to humility. That gets you to magnanimity, which is how you set big, big goals.
What are your like top 2 or 3 things that if you have people transitioning to the private sector, or you have people that have transitioned and they're struggling, how to find their purpose within a role and within an organization and start building value for themselves and for the organization, right? And because a lot of it, you're absolutely right, is the higher up seeing the value that you bring.
Yeah. I think the first one is, you know, ask for friends. So in the military, you know, you show up in the barracks and these are your new buddies. In the civilian world, you got to reach out. LinkedIn started, you know, that Paul and I met through a veterans networking organization, and then he came through my program, and now I'm coming back to talk to you guys, right? So it's okay to ask people to spend their time and your time together. And then kind of on that vein, the second one is ask questions. I don't know what happened. Like, I got teenage kids, and I mean, my son knows everything. And let me just pause the tape in case you guys didn't hear me. He knows everything, right? Yeah. So anybody with teen boys, you know, you kind of know the sense of that. And it's okay. It's a phase. But if you want to mature and you want to really do well in the civilian world or in the military, like, start asking questions more. Ask a lot of what if questions and why questions, and save the how questions to the very end when you're done. Like, don't worry how to solve it. What if? Yes, sir. Sorry, Jake. You don't
No. It just made me It just made me think. We're competing for time here. So real quick, Paul hadn't said anything, but I want to say this. Can you share a little bit about how you can give some advice on individuals, how you can just kind of control your ego through self-development, self-regulation?
Yeah, it's one word: adversity. I mean, adversity breeds humility, right? But here's the problem: like, we like our houses at 72 degrees. You leave a cool, comfortable office, you get in a cool, comfortable car, you go to a cool, comfortable house, right? You don't read books as much as you probably should because, there's no grade to get now. You don't put yourself out there on a networking group and force yourself to go talk to people because, well, I have a friend group and I don't have any more time, right? Find a way to make yourself uncomfortable. Do challenging things. Create adversity. I'm saying create drama, but create something to push yourself against. And that shows you limits. It makes you struggle with your courage. It makes you struggle to overcome things. That'll teach you humility. But instead, what we do is, we sit and we watch movies at night with, a quart of ice cream on our chest, like an otter, just, happy.
Nothing wrong with that, bro.
I love ice cream.
Yeah, I've had a lot of ice cream. Like, I get it. Tillamook is fantastic, by the way.
Freaking nasty, fat and happy.
Right. But the problem is that creates ease. And so when you have ease, you're just looking for happy. Happy's fleeting. It's one of many emotions, and it's taken to an extreme, and it's not even healthy. So if you want to really improve yourself, if you want to step up, which to do so, you'd have to get to humility, find some things that are hard and then go do them. And it starts with get up and exercise every day. Go outside, play with your kids. Do all the things that society's kind of gotten away from because it's easy to sit and, what's the phrase, Netflix and chill? Like, yeah, that's great, but that's your life at 72 degrees. You know what your body does when it hits homeostasis? It just makes problems. Like, it starts to break down, right? And it breaks down by getting fat, and then it processes sugar differently, and then it gives you a disease. Your body doesn't even want that. It wants you to be hot and then cold and then sleep on the ground and then sleep on a cot. And like, try some things, but adversity breeds humility.
So that's
Absolutely.
what the trick is. That's it's kind of funny. That's like we always had a joke where, like, we had a lot of people that we went on deployment back in 2008, and you're like, man, I can never lose weight. And about 3 months into deployment, man, I lost 40 pounds. And I'm like, well, all you had to do is put some body armor on and sweat your ass off for about 4 days straight. And
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can't outrun the fork. I got it. Like, you gotta take a look at your whole life. But that all of that is adversity. Like, and you just shape the environment, set yourself up for success. The Forge program Paul went through. Every morning, do 3 things, even if they're small. Just do them on purpose, because it sets your mind up for doing things on purpose.
I hated it after about 45 days, but I still forced myself. It was a good program. But a couple episodes ago, we had a whole, me, Tim, and Jake, we had a whole conversation about toxic leadership and what it does to the environment, what it does to the corporate environment, both in the civilian world and in the military. In the military, we all know that there's toxic leadership in the military too, and they can get some really, really bad results because of it. We had our own opinions about what causes toxic leadership, and we each gave an example. Garth, what would you say? How would you fix the toxic leadership environment, especially if you have the key term of power when it comes to being high up in the chain of command and stubbornness at the same time?
Yeah, you're in the same silver bullet thing. I mean, here's the problem. You could do coaching and training for the subordinates, and it works, and they get filled with enthusiasm and idealism, and they want to press forward, and they want to make themselves better, but the leaders didn't attend the class. Or the leaders are so used to providing their experience that when you bring new ideas, the first thing they say is no, because, right? Because they know why it'll fail, because they tried that 15 years ago, and they're saving you the time. You're not saving anybody anything by telling them no right out the gates. So I don't think there is a solution. It's a holistic thing that involves the changing of language, like the way you see and perceive the world. But you need to provide education for everyone, and different levels of that for different levels of people. You need to shape an environment where people make less choices and they just practice better consequences. An easy example is if you want to go running more, put your shoes, shorts, and a shirt right by the door. So when you wake up in the morning, you have to step over your exercise equipment, to get out of your bedroom. It's a stupid little trick, but it works because now you're making a conscious choice not to put it on or not to execute your plan. So 1, education, 2, environment shaping, and 3, the senior leaders like really realize what their role is. It's time to mature. Like it's time to don't say no. I mean, the first thing out of a lot of senior leaders' mouth is no, and they think they're helping you. They think that they're doing you a favor by saving you the time, the pain, the whatever of how they learned it. But they're actually stopping you from failing. They're stopping you from growth
and learning.
And you're not learning because now you know the book answer, but you never felt the pain. You never had the adversity like we were talking about. So what you have is a bunch of people who know the right answer. They don't know how to make any new answers, and they certainly don't know how to execute it. Well, we did that to ourselves. So teach everyone, shape the environment as best you can so that people make decisions because they already set it up. And then senior leaders, in the Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, like it's time for some of us to put on that white hat and the long beard and the staff and just walk around and, be the wise old wizard that's like, hey, Paul, you're the hero of this story, buddy. I'm going to go sit over here and do wizard things and make smoke rings. Like, I got to let you go on your own adventures. And that means you could get hurt, which is it's a virtue, courage, right? Right there, right? It's a virtue. I have to let you have it too. And if I'm in a park, like they got these little concrete edges and they put the silly little steel things, so the skateboarders can't ride on. Why? So they don't break their arm? How else are they going to get their adrenaline out, get their thrills, we need adventures and we can't stop every injury. We can't cure every ill. We have to get hurt a little as we grow.
And you won't have any stories. Which actually, for people, we are a storytelling race, right? And if you don't create your own stories to share, you're not going to feel like you've achieved the purpose, like you've served anything greater than yourself. And
you won't fit in.
No, absolutely.
That's why the veterans are so cool, because they all have a story.
Yeah.
I'm really glad you brought that up too, because, one of the best teachers, and this is the one thing the one issue that I have with the whole grading system about getting A, B, C, Ds, and Fs is that, especially in our school system, they almost chastise, make you, and they humiliate you if you fail, and they reward you if you get an A. I mean, the funny thing is, I read a book that actually caused me to start my business. It was a book by Robert Kiyosaki. Was it A Rich Dad, Poor Dad? And that book that famously talks about how A students work for C students. Yeah. And the whole thing is that if you fail, it in itself is a learning lesson. If you fail and you have, like what you said, Garth, about encouraging them, learning from that failure and having a positive influence versus having a negative, saying, okay, well, failing is bad, you're going to get a lot of people that just give up in life.
Look, the Prussians, got it handed to them when Napoleon rolled through Europe the first time. And then arguably are the reason that Waterloo was won, because the Prussians showed up at the last minute and tipped the tide of the battle. But there was a guy named von Moltke who created this school studying maneuver warfare. And he used to say, I don't want the winningest general. I want the general with the best average. Because if I get a guy who's never lost, he's either never had a good opponent, or I have no idea if he does lose, if he's going to turn and run, because he's never experienced it before. I like people with scars, and I like people who've been pushed a little bit, but then they were resilient enough to come back from it. They challenged me to be a better person, they have better stories, to Tim's point, they're good to be around. And that's why vets too align as a culture, because at our base, we all had basic training. We all had that that range somewhere. You know, we all have that story about the one night out in the dark, you know, where X happened, and a lot of X's have happened, right? But we all have that shared bond. And when you got to the civilian world, not so much. Life was, you know, I was on a team, and then I got into this college, and then I got a job, or go have an adventure, travel.
Yeah, no, I hear you. So I like how you talked about adversity. Let's talk about leading yourself, about mental toughness, overcoming mental adversity, right? So we've got Kabul fell over the weekend, right? I know I was always in Iraq, but I know a ton of people who are in Afghanistan. We've all got time downrange on this call. And there are people that are seriously stressed right now, vets that are seriously stressed. They're going through a tough time, which is understandable. But this is not dissimilar to going through a tough time at work, figuring like something happens at work that you don't have control of. And now you're just like, how could this happen? I can't believe it, and having trouble getting past it. So advice for leading yourself and focusing your mental energy on something productive versus dwelling on things that you can't control. What do you say?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one because at times we have put more of ourselves into a thing than into our own development. So one, I would tell you, you are not Afghanistan if you served there. And the mission you did in Afghanistan was when you were there. If you peaked when you hung up your uniform, don't take this the wrong way, but shame on you. Like the best you ever were was your last day when you hung the uniform up, polished the medals, and put them in the closet. Like you learned so many wonderful, wonderful things. And it's your obligation, especially in an honor-based society, which is where we all come from. It's your obligation to bring that out to the rest of the world. Society needs that. I mean, there's a reason we pull our warrior culture in, we let them do warrior stuff for 20 years, and then we push them back into the world. Like it makes the rest of society healthy. So if you're struggling with what's going on, like I get it. There, you know, there are some people putting a good spin on it, and there are some people who are just flabbergasted at what's going on. I think there's a lot of evil in the world, and just because you were there doesn't mean you have to own the results forever, right? But what you do have to own is your own response. You know, the Stoics would tell you like emotions are kind of like waves, right? And you can't sit on a beach and say, well, that's a happy wave, and try and hold it, right? And you can't say that's a sad wave and try and block it, right? It's better to just back up a little on the beach and just watch them come in and out and enjoy the beach. Our lives are so fundamentally rich with amazing people, with incredible job skills training, with adventure, with adversity, with struggle, with the stuff that really makes life worth living. And if you got yours in Afghanistan, awesome. And if you got it in Iraq, fantastic. And if it's taught you to be more resilient, or it's made you a better person, or it's made you more interesting, dig into that, because you can't control what's going on right now unless you're there, you know, unless you just got loaded up. And then guess what? That's their mission. Like they're the ones executing on that. And, you know, I'm still in the reserves, and my eyes are pointed to a different ocean right now because that's what my command is doing and what they're focused on. So you can be personally upset about it, but if you start to make things outside your control your own life issue, it's a siren's call, right? And what you will do is you will put your time and your energy and your passion into something you cannot affect. So you will always feel, you know, incomplete. You will always feel like you haven't achieved whatever your goals were, and you won't be able to achieve them because you're not dictating national policy, right? You can achieve goals on your own personal growth, inside your family, inside your community, and on as the circles go up. But you do that by focusing on being, you know, true to a good character set, holding to real values, struggling to get to humility, you know, having nice goals, like big, hairy goals. If you can focus on that, especially with the resiliency taught to you by the military, you're going to do phenomenally. And if you need to talk to somebody to get out the anger at watching something collapse that you felt part of, do that. Call somebody. Call me. You know, but because I understand the frustration of watching your interpreter's emails come in and knowing there's nothing you can do but put them on a list. I get it intimately, right? But and I have friends who've brought them into their homes and it was out of Iraq, but he lived with him. He brought him home and lived with him for years because that was something he could control. In this moment, in this instant, yelling at the TV, that's not going to fix anything. But take a look at your family. You know, are you committing a purposeful act of love to your spouse every day or every week? And if you're not, shame on you. Do that. You know, are you spending your time looking at your shadow box, or have you sat down and figured out your commander's intent for the next 20 years? Because you guys are young, right? And most vets did 4 years, you know, so you got a whole lifetime. And you're telling me that you're going to hang all your emotions and your feelings on a pinnacle achievement that you peaked at 24 when you hung the uniform up? That's the best you got after everything we taught you, after everything the military and the government gave you. The best you can do, you know, is sit back and be pissed off at that while you drink yourself to oblivion, or your family falls apart, or your business doesn't get to the next level. You can do better.
Yeah.
Like, there's a reason we taught you all this stuff. Like, ruck up, pull your boots on tight, like, get to work. Like, this country, this community, our neighborhood, our friends, we all need help. I mean, hell, I was at a buddy's house last weekend picking up all his guns because he was caught at 1 a.m. with a bottle of scotch staring at one of them. And he had a 1 round sitting on the table in front of him, like, while he rehearsed. It was a rehearsal. He was doing dry runs. Well, you know, that's a waste. This guy has a lot to contribute.
Yep.
And so we do what we should do. We remove the threat. We shape the environment. We set up longer term goals, right? And we get them in touch with real professionals, because I'm not in that case, right? So if you're struggling with this, the struggle is real. I got it. But you got to be able to put it in perspective. Scoot back on the beach a little bit. Notice that you're watching the waves, not fighting. You don't have to control them. You have to enjoy them.
Yep.
That's the trick.
Hey, Garth, I want to add one thing about, you talked about your kids, so you kind of opened it up for this subject. Can you, I mean, it's such an important subject for the next generation, because they're watching us, you know, like we all lost many brothers in combat. We all can say, you know, the dead give us strength, which I do believe in that. But what gives me more strength is knowing my kids are watching me. Yep. With their own eyes. So like the kind of Holly McKay's book, Cry for the Living, you know, only cry for the living. It's such a powerful phrase for me. But could you share your top 3 skills / characteristics that you would love your kids to embody as they grow up?
Oh, okay. Number one, I said I want to raise nerds. Actually, my wife and I talked about this a lot when we had our first kid. If I can get them to 18 and they like to read and they understand how people work, you know, that they're kind, that's a huge thing. I want them to be healthy. Now, we all have done things to mess up our lives, our bodies, right? But I own that for the first 18 years. So if you're feeding your kids sugar, you know, if macaroni and cheese is your, you know, dinner du jour, that doesn't count. You can't do that. You own that for 18 years. So I want them to be kind. I want them to be fit. Like, I want them to be able to I want to give them the best chance they can to live, to breathe, to run, you know, to be happy with what they've got. And then last, you know, I want to teach them some resiliency, which means I let them fall down and I make them do hard things, you know. So we go for hikes, and sometimes they're like, oh, I need more water. And you're like, well, you're 8, suck it up. You know, no, I don't abuse my kids, but if they want to do hard things, I let them do hard things. And I put hard things in our yard. You know, I put them in places where they can challenge themselves, and I fight the urge, because the urge is strong. I fight the urge to catch them every time. You know, I tease, like, my 2 teen boys, when they got older, you know, they started squabbling and fighting like teen boys would do. And so my wife was like, oh, they're punching each other. I mean, not really, like 12-year-old punching, right? So I bought them plastic swords, like those little martial arts swords. And some people don't call CPS, I guess, but I gave them plastic swords. And then the next time they got in a fight, I was like, hey, let's do it with a sword fight. Let's go, boys. And they're like, heck yeah. And they both got swords, and they both took a swing. And then they both realized the swords really hurt, and they weren't that mad, right? And so they worked it out so that they wouldn't hit each other. And they all sword fight in the backyard, but never in anger, because they realized when they do it with anger, they can get really hurt. So they got to be more strategic about it and stab them in the back, that kind of stuff. Don't do that either.
Now I just got to
convince my wife. Raise nerds, you know,
to try that.
You own those bodies for 18 years, so don't put crap in them. Pardon my French. right? So nerds, I mean, and by nerds, I mean like teach them to think, teach them to read, make them interesting to talk to, teach them respect, that kind of stuff. Take care of their bodies for them before they run off to the world and destroy it on Mountain Dew and Doritos. And then let them struggle a little bit. Let them work.
I love it. I love it.
Great.
Garth.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, great having you on, man.
Good luck. You got a 5-month-old
Awesome.
right there, man. You got a long way to go, my friend.
Yeah.
All right,
Great,
guys.
though. Being a dad's the best thing.
Thank you, Garth, for coming on. Thank you, Garth, for agreeing and coming on, man. It was great having you here, and it was really, really, really great advice and words of wisdom from a senior military leader. And you know,
I stumbled.
I gotta throw it to you, man. You know, some of those crayons do turn out to have some good results.
Hey, look, Paul, I can lift a lot of heavy things.
I had to throw one in there.
I can shoot like crazy. You know, the Marine Corps taught me many, many good skills, and I got to get out to one of your classes one time. We'll have a go.
Oh, absolutely. And we'll definitely do it next month, Garth. I know I couldn't make it because I was in Arizona during that time, but next month I'm gonna be there right with you in the middle of the beach.
That's right. So we've got a men's accountability group. We PT 3 days a week, and once a month over the summer we've been going down to Venice Beach. So if you look at my profile, you may see some of the pictures. Last time we had like 40 gentlemen there, flipping tires, swinging kettlebells, throwing chains, and at the end we all run down into the surf. And the idea is like we're doing things together, you know, and it's there's just something very pure about, you know, hard work and sweat and energy being put out. And we just do it down by the ocean because it's awesome. But yeah,
I'll definitely be there next month. Just let me know when it is, and I'll block my calendar out for it.
I think September 18th, if anybody wants to join us. Venice
September
Beach.
18th.
September 18th.
I love it. Disparity of force. I love it. That's how humans have thrived. We can't do it alone. We're prey items alone.
Gentlemen are doing a good thing with this. You keep bringing in voices, you keep having conversations, good stuff pops up every time you do it. Thank you for having me here. But we've got to be having tough conversations. That's critical thinking. It's not about redefining our world and saying, well, I just don't want to believe in something. It's about opening the discussion up to much bigger ideas. So you're doing that. Keep it up.
All right. Thank you very
All right.
much.
Semper Fi Delis.
Semper Fi. Hoorah.
I just see crayons and teeth. So,
I still have teeth.
Hey,
That's
Tim.
good.
Hey, Tim, I need some Motrin 800, buddy. Come on, Doc.
you know what? Lay down. I'll drop some on you and sprinkle you with water, bro. You'll be fine.
Oh, and this is the part where the officer just leaves the room.
Silver bullet.
Just turn your head and
three
walk
guys
away.
in a ball. We are out of here.